of Nigeria President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, guests from the diplomatic corps, Vice President Kashim Shettima, ministers, and friends of Nigeria from across the world witnessing these celebrations. Of course, earlier in the day, of course, there was also a broadcast, telling us exactly, the destination of state as the government, continues to roll out, programs that will capture the imagination of the people and ameliorate some of the challenges being faced. I still have in the studio my guests, Faith Nwadishi, Executive Director, Center for Transparency and Advocacy, and of course, Osita Okechukwu, former Director General, Voice of Nigeria, who has been giving us vibes from the, old school in terms of, things that used to happen, and the gestation period for the Fourth Republic, which of course started with the agitation around democratic rule, which started but had a still battle at the presidential elections in June 12, 1993. Eventually, of course, this day continues to hold poignant memories, and it's now cast in stone as Nigeria's Democracy Day. Gentlemen and lady, thank you for your time, because you've been here for quite a while, but I will still want to let us look at what has happened today. Yes, we've seen this celebration, the parade and all that, but for you and going forward, how would you want us to see a day like this? Just not as a reminder, but could it also be a pedestal or a launch pad for the nation's cohesion and future greatness? Faith.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much. Watching this, I feel that Nigeria has a lot of potential. Especially looking at the displays from the different cultures that we have, with a country as large as Nigeria with over 250 identified ethnic groups, and then showcasing that. I think it should actually be a pedestal. The June 12th has always been that turning point for us in our political journey, to ensure that things are done properly. But unfortunately, I would say a lot of the things that were expected to have been done properly have not really met the expectation of some of us, like myself, understanding where we came from to be where we are. I think also that looking at this, I remember growing up as a child. I know that when you have celebrations like this, you see young children, school children coming out perhaps as part of the parade to also put some kind of expectations for them to know that they have to play a role in developing Nigeria and sustaining that unity that we have. But I saw that as not being part of the display that we have had. Today would have been that day that you have children, celebrating with their uniforms or their clothes and being part of the entire parade. And so going forward with all of the stories we have heard, the backstory that we have also heard from Chief Osita on the discussions that happened that a lot of Nigerians didn't know how we got there. I get so encouraged that if we keep these stories out there, people will be encouraged to do the right thing. We need to keep the narrative, positive narrative about all of this. We need to remember that as a country, Nigeria, we're so blessed, over 200 million people, different talents. There's nowhere you get to in Nigeria that you don't see that. We only need the political class to look at what has happened in the past, what our past leaders had done, those that were remembered today in the president's speech, some of those who were not also remembered, the contributions that they have made to the Nigeria that we have today. We cannot afford to let those contributions go in vain. We need to look for a way to build on that contribution. And one way to be able to build on that contribution is to continuously talk about the good things that happened, the sacrifices that people made, so that the young ones who are coming up will not think that you can get whatever it is, riches or fame, by not working hard for it. We have Nigeria today because people worked hard for it. People were focused, and they knew that we have no other country but Nigeria, and they had to contribute to that. So that's one missing link that I see in the past years, but I think we can go back there in this, using this kind of celebrations and celebrating people who have made those sacrifices in the past.
All right, the old national anthem has returned as the new, Elder. When you look at, you know, the key words in it and sentences that, you know, were depicted in some of those celebrations, showcasing the multicultural, multi-ethnic, you know, entity that Nigeria is, though tribes and tongues may differ, in brotherhood we stand, is a concept that has been there since independence. We've made several efforts to make sure that we enact policies and concepts that would weld the nation together, both in terms of achieving, you know, a common purpose. And we're still doing that. Talk about the NYSC scheme, so many things. Why do we still need to, you know, keep on hammering on this unity? Why have we not been completely into ourselves that, you know, we still need to sing, you know, this, we need to sing it every single day to make sure that we still have that unity of purpose as a nation?
I agree with you, we've not gotten where we want to get to. But the truth of the matter is that as displayed at that arena at the Eagle Square, it still shows the magnificence of the country, the elegance of the country, and the consciousness. Let us not forget that even when we talk about the democracy, we have done so well as well. President Tinubu, you see there, got more votes outside Yoruba land than in Yoruba land. Those who voted for P2B in Lagos were not Igbos only. That's the truth of the matter, but a lot of people don't want to look into that. It's exactly almost, it's not as pronounced as the Abiola zone, but it keeps on repeating itself. Why did PDP, for instance, in their own calculation and strategies, they sat back and said the only way they can gain power back is to produce a northerner. That was why they reversed they breached their own constitution and nominated Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, His Excellency. They thought the whole North would vote for Atiku, but it didn't happen. These are pluses that we have gained in the 25 years of democracy. Some governors that wanted to come to the Senate did not come. A lot of people think that democracy is a revolution. It is not. It's evolutionary. And the pace we are going is not too bad, has been canvassed. The only downside we have is the economic hardship. And there are solutions. Immediately we could leverage on the economic hardship, a lot of people will return back. We're not as divided as people think. I've looked into the leading companies in Nigeria, and when I go through the membership of their board, I could see that they had no tribe, they had no religion. Go through the leadership or the ownership of First Bank, go to Zenith Bank, GTB, Access Bank. Look at those big companies. You rarely know who is coming from where. When late Wike died, when they started doing analysis of how he come up, nobody believed. I keep on telling people like myself, outside the fact that I was born in Igbo land, a Yoruba man helped me to be here, an Hausa man helped me to be here. I cannot just easily forget. I was looking for NDE loan of 50,000 then in 1988. I said I was going to Abuja, I would start newspaper and public relations, I canceled it. One day I mustered the courage, I went to the MD. The MD said, "You want to go to Abuja?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "They are correct, that we don't know the newspaper you can do, and return back the loan. Go to Abuja, start a restaurant." That was Chief Wole Adosho. And one day he came to Abuja, and I rushed to him. He said, "Who is that?" I explained to him. He said, "Okay, tomorrow I will be here. I'll go to a restaurant." And I did start a restaurant. I started the public relations, as I said. So there's a lot of unity on the ground.
Did you pay back the loan?
Yes, I paid, because the next time The same Jarahanani I served in his office, his brother was the governor of Plateau State. He got me introduced to the governor. So one of the companies looking for a job in Plateau State, I took the company to the man, and the man awarded them 7.4 million job. The little they paid me, I offset the loan. That is between one northerner, one westerner. So, and a lot of us, when we start telling stories about ourselves and the others, we do calculation. You see where we are. Look at the election, as I said. Let me repeat it. I keep on saying this. A lot of my people thought it was only the Igbos that voted for me in Lagos. I said, no. I said, what of the middle belt? Did you meet them before they voted for him? He won an election in many places where we were not. And Tinubu had more votes outside Yoruba land. So similar to Abiola, but not as pronounced as Abiola. So, and democracy being evolutionary, we keep on adding. We have more universities today, about 200 and something. We have more hospitals. We have more network of roads. We have goes to standard airline. We have, everybody has it. There was a time they said only the rich man should have a telephone. But today, the granola seller hawks his own telephone. One might be different, might be the quality of your handset. But all of us are communicating.
All right. Talking about communication, earlier in the day, President Bola Tinubu reassured Nigerians of his commitment to the moral and constitutional obligations to preserve democracy and protect the rights and freedoms as well as liberties of the citizens. In his address to commemorate this year's democracy, the Democracy Day, the Parliament President equally pledged to what is necessary to cement democracy as a way of life in the country.
And I was among those who took the risk to midwife the birth of our democracy. I am now a direct and obvious beneficiary of the fruit of those historic efforts.
Bola Tinubu is currently the man in front, living the democratic life many had dreamt of. Fulfilling or nostalgic, not so many were so fortunate, not even the principal actor regarded as the most significant symbol of a democratic struggle, Chief MKO Abiola. And now, he salutes the memories of those who did not survive the struggle and the bravery of those who stood tall against the stand of the then strongmen, including the irrepressible Nigerian journalist.
The sacrifices they made and the precious gift brought about by their selfless devotion can never be repaid nor forgotten.
Against the odds, the seed of democracy germinated, weathering the storm for 25 years and now demanding even more deliberate efforts to nurture the process which has so far birthed 7 rounds of general election and 5 presidents.
That we have established a tradition of holding transparent, open, and fair elections gives credence to our democratic standing. That we have experienced peaceful transitions of government affirms our democratic temperament.
The man at the helm of affairs, now shouldering the responsibilities of not only to protect and consolidate the pricey democracy, but also deliver its expected gains to Nigerians in form of good governance. Yet again, the President remains confident that various reforms put in place by his administration will guarantee a better future for the nation and its people.
There is no doubt that the reform has occasioned hardship. I feel your pains. Yet there are necessary repairs required to fix the economy over the long run so that everyone has access to economic opportunity, fair pay, and compensation for his endeavor and labor.
President Tinubu says his government has exemplified respect for the rights and privileges of Nigerians with the handling of labor matters and the resultant industrial action recently.
As we continue to reform the economy I shall always listen to the people and will never turn my back on you. In this spirit, we have negotiated in good faith and with open arms with organized labor on a new national minimum wage. We shall soon send our executive bill to the National Assembly to enshrine what has been agreed upon as part of our law for the next 5 years or less.
And despite the current social and economic challenges, President Bola Tinubu wants Nigerians to share the commitment to preserve this government of the people, as well as the hope to deliver a much better Nigeria for generations to come.
President Bola Tinubu there talking about the gains of democracy, paying tribute to those who lost their lives during the struggle, and also as a beneficiary and as a member of, as part of the struggle and a beneficiary, assuring Nigerians of better days ahead, and enumerating concrete steps to deliver, as it were, the dividends of democracy. Nigeria's 25 years of unbroken democracy continues. Let's, talk about a little bit of what the president was saying there, reassuring Nigerians that, his government is committed to ameliorating the challenges currently being faced, and assuring that, even in terms of agreements with organized labor, the Nigerian workers are, at the cusp of, seeing new realities as far as their take-home is concerned. Faith.
Yeah, thank you very much. I listened very keenly to what the president spoke about today, even though I was expecting that he would have mentioned the figures. I was expecting that, but I didn't say. Let's wait for the bill that will be sent to the National Assembly. Perhaps that's when we will get it. There were a few takeaways I saw from the president's speech, and I think that if we deliberate really seriously on what he said. For instance, he mentioned the fact that in a democracy you have diverse perspectives, and that's what helps democracies to strive. If there's freedom of speech on extent, freedom of participation, and people's perspective on issues are respected, I'm sure that we'll be able to have the kind of democracy that the president captured in his speech, where citizens would, from a point of view of an informed person, make contributions to that, and also that he realizes that there's need for fair pay. According to his words, just quoting him verbatim, because I took some notes when I was listening, and he said, fair pay for endeavor and labor. So I am expecting that whatever the government is going to come out with would actually address that issue of fair pay for endeavor and labor, because you want to encourage people with the kind of hardship that we have seen, the situation, the economic situation. Even though he also mentions that we need to have economic democracy, this is something that we are looking forward to, that people would contribute to that. But people who work should be able to get fair pay for their endeavor and their labor, as he has said. And then again, he talked about the fact that you have citizens, servants of the common good. And for there to be common good, it means there has to be inclusion, there has to be participation, active participation of citizens, interrogating government policies and making suggestions on how to get there, on how to get there. Most importantly, and also when you talk about the issue of inclusion, inclusive participation, we need to very critically look at the participation of women and young persons. We have a lot of young persons' talents. If the parade we saw today from the different groups, we saw that the majority of the population of people who participated in that were actually young persons. So policies around strengthening young persons' participation in governance and ensuring that their different perspective is also captured is very important for us to have this sustained development and sustained democracy that we have. But one thing I worry about is that we have this speech that is here. Are we able to transform this speech into going forward? What are the issues? What is the hope for Nigerians? What are the incentives for Nigerians to continue to play the roles that they are playing, to make the sacrifices that they are making, so that we can now achieve the economic democracy that the president speaks about?
Chief Hospital, Faith rightly spoke about concept and actuality. The president has, made promises, in some cases even, pledged. What are your takeaways from, that address? And perhaps you put also alongside your answers, your own, expectations.
To me, the speech was a contract with Nigeria. That is what I classify this in Mr. President's speech. He has stated a contract, a social contract between him and the Nigerian people, and pledged and made a distinction between political democracy and economic democracy. And that's where my interest is. On the political side, if Nigeria were a man, a person, a 25-year-old person, some had gotten married. So we have done well on the political democracy, but we have not done well on the economic side. That is where my problem is. And I think that Mr. President, having identified that, must have aligns even with his renewed agenda. And as I said before, unlike my sister Faith, I have an idea of the Nigerian economy. That money for jumbo pay for workers is not there. I said the battle about about labor union and the government is between realism and affordability. Labor is realistic. There's hardship. They need more pay. But the truth of the matter is that when it was 30,000, about 12 states could not pay. Not out of cruelty or that the governors were profligate. No. There are competing demands, one, and there are some states you cannot wake up and start taxing. They do it in some states, but they don't do it every state. There are differences from one state to the other. And at any rate, if you have money to pay 200,000 per worker, you are going against the economic theory that says that if much cash is pursuing few goods, it renders that cash hopeless. I don't want us to go that way. We're already in a stagflation, where the economy is stagnant and there's inflation. And you pour in more cash into it, it will nullify what the workers will get. And it will not improve the living conditions of the workers. So I expected the labor union and to advocate the core issues that help the family to stabilize: housing, electricity,
Health.
and health. No, health can go on. It's been going on. But the one that is fundamental is that if a cluster of workers are living in a given place, if the government brings the CNG buses or any bus for that matter, it makes transportation cheaper, makes shelter cheaper, makes even inner peace of the family. Some people die because of rentage. And I keep on saying that if the Nigerian labor did not put it in their bouquet of demands, Mr. President should retool his renewed hope the housing program, which was launched early in January. I know as well that the Minister of Housing, he used to be the MD of the mortgage bank. He knows that every Nigerian worker had 2.5% being deducted for a long time. So there's already seed money. All the government needs is to look for money somewhere to supplement and get every worker in the next few years to have a shelter. Some might be 1 bedroom, some might be 2, but it gives an inner peace, it encourages health, and gives life. Because a lot of people die because they are thinking, how do they pay for? Okay, if you get buses, for instance, in Abuja, and some workers are living in Lugbe, some are living in Yaya, how do you pick them? It becomes difficult. And immediately public mortgage works, the informal and formal private sector will join. It happened in the UK. I keep on saying that. Over 70% of those who live in the United Kingdom live in their own houses. It's going on in China now. You keep on seeing sprouting of houses. It's a collective mortgage system. We don't just go with more cash, more cash, more cash. Somebody like the Labour president, Jajero, he used to lead the electric union. He knows what to be done.
So, Chief Osita,
No,
we
I'm
have
not
a
a
second.
chief.
Yes, sorry, okay.
I'm not a chief.
Perhaps we were, bowed over by, your, depth of experience. Let's join my colleague Benny Adams in our second studio. He has a guest very quickly to talk to Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, Dean of School of Postgraduate Studies, Bayes University, Abuja. Professor Adeniyi is on standby, and Benny is also there. So it's over to you, Benny.
And as we follow conversations from the president's speech down to the activities at the Eagle Square and now at the studios, I have with me Professor Abiodun Adeniyi. He is the Dean of Postgraduate Studies, Bayes University here in Abuja. Prof, you're welcome to Democracy Day.
Thank you, my pleasure.
It's been 25 years, you might call it political democracy. We transitioned from the military rule down to democracy. We've had different leaders come and go. Some of them, their tenure was short-lived, like Yaradua, due to, unfortunately, death. We've had a lot of reforms, talking about political reforms, economic reforms, legislative reforms. Some have worked so well, and some haven't worked as expected. From your own point of view, being someone who has been not just in studies but also in practice, you follow political development, not just as a teacher in the classroom, but practically on the field. What would be your assessment of some of those achievements? Yes, it's been up and down, but let me have your view before we come to some of the issues that have been raised today.
Well, no doubt, it's been a pleasure that we're able to get this far, 25 years of unbroken democracy, considering our checkered history in the evolution of the Nigerian nation state post-independence, considering again, specifically, that we have had so many periods of military interregnum, but we need to remember that democracy is not necessarily a destination, but a journey. And we remember again, we have nations around the world that we can make as beacons. The United States is really cited as a bastion of democracy, and of course, being a bastion means that it's been a foremost democracy across in the world, and it is 2 centuries old, 2 centuries old in democracy. Even at that, it is still struggling, and in normal ratings, it is not seen as the best democracy in the world. The best democracy in the world are in the Nordic Scandinavian countries. So if United States of America is still struggling, with aspects of it, yes, institutions are okay, structures are okay, but agencies are still problematic. There's this tension between agency and structure. The structure is fine, but agency is still problematic, reflected partly in the emergence now and again of controversial personalities that wants to rupture the process. So it is still struggling as it is, even though it's fanciful as a democracy. So then where do we situate ourselves, when we are 25 years? We can say, yes, this is fine, we're 25 years, there are so many things we should have been right about, there are certain things we should have fixed correctly, but we shouldn't be too hard on ourselves, in assessing how well we have done. We haven't done badly, at the level of sustenance. We haven't done badly at the level of longevity, considering our history, which I referenced earlier. But what we need to do, the problem still is, the character, the content of our democracy, the nature of our democracy, the way we manage the process, and how do we manage the process? How is it reflected? What yardsticks are we going to deploy in measuring how we manage the process? We're talking about election management system. We're talking about attitudes to leadership recruitment. We're talking about governance, government, still steeped in nepotism, favoritism, some idiosyncrasies, ethnicism, politics of compensation, politics of reward for loyalty, as against merit, as against competence. All these downsides are still there, but even at that, it's not enough for us to be
not to salute the effort we have made. But what we need to do is to continue to focus at those downsides so that we can realize what people regard often as a dividend of democracy, which may not necessarily matter, because if we're talking about dividend, you're talking about people's ability to meet their yearnings and aspirations.
Sure.
And yearnings and aspirations can actually come in any governance system. We have had benevolent military dictatorships, we have had theocracies that are benevolent, they are not necessarily democratic. So those ones can come in any administration. The essence of democracy.
Yes.
The essence of democracy, actually, why democracy is superior, regarded the world over, privilege over any form of government, is the question of inclusion and integration, representation, involvement of all angles, all people in the system, consistent with the wish of God for humanity. That all people, all nations, human beings are born free. And if they are born free, they have surrendered their powers to the state through government, through leaders, and those leaders are supposed to work in their own interests. Democracy is largely representative, and that's why even nations that are theocratic, that you say are not necessarily democratic, have semblances of democracy through consultations, politburos, parliaments, etc., etc.
No doubt we've achieved so much in this 25 years compared to the downside. But like you mentioned, talking about the character, the structure, particularly in the political sphere, talking about how we get our leaders to office, talking about elections. We've had reforms in the electoral process, but there is this call for more reforms. Particularly, we heard from former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan this morning calling for reforms to end the do-or-die kind of politics we play, that people get into office by various means, not necessarily you and I exercising our ballot to get these people to office, to get our leaders. And when they get to office, is it about service? Is it about personal aggrandizement? How do we get out of this quagmire at this point?
Excellent. That's an aspect, an element of the content that we talk about.
Yeah.
An aspect of the character of our democracy that we talked about. Some of these things may not happen overnight. You may not just need a bullet, to strike at it. It can be processual, because we're talking about attitude, character change. It can be very, very difficult, especially when people have been patterned in a way, when people have been configured to behave in a particular way, and you see it becoming systemic in the sense that it grows from one generation or the other, from one age to the other. When you see an age, a particular age group exhibiting that kind of trait, you'll be expecting that those who are coming behind, will not replicate it, but unfortunately they do, and that's why many 60-something years after, we're still talking about corruption. We're still on the same kind of problem because of the difficulty, in behavior change.
Having established that this thing is systemic and it's been over time and it's been passed possibly from one generation to another, would you say we need value reorientation? And if we do, how do we go about that? Yes, we have the National Orientation Agency trying to do a whole lot of rebranding, citizen engagement, and all of that, but it seems the process is slow. Though you said it's a journey, how much patience do we have? Nigerians, I might not be very correct. We are not that very patient people. We want results and we want them fast. How do we go about this?
I was going to come to that. It's not rocket science again.
Yes.
It just takes optics. There's in every social system there's a binary between structure and agency. I said it earlier, between the individual and the system. The optics of the individual. The precepts, the examples showed by the leaders, does a lot to change the attitude of the people. But if we see leaders, exhibiting sheer sleaze, profligacy, extravagance, you see business still continuing as usual, no change, consciously or unconsciously, directly or indirectly, people tend to fall in line. But if you see leaders being disruptive, you are seeing, practical steps on the part of leaders to change their ways. People will fall in shape, they will fall in line. People can be very malleable,
Okay, Professor Dini. Okay, sorry to hold your thoughts on that. We're going to talk about this, the progress we've made politically. We're going to come something the president mentioned about political democracy and economic democracy. We're going to come back to that. But for now, we have from our Jigawa studio, we're joining them live to get updates of some of the celebrations that's been taking place. Not just about the center here in Abuja, but it also states are having celebration. Jigawa, is over to you at this point.
Governor of Jigawa State, Engineer Amin Ibrahim Usman Gumel, Right Honorable Speaker, Jigawa State House of Assembly, Aliyu Dangatu, Kair Dandutse,